Okay, good morning. Welcome to our weekly show, the Thursday Thread. My name is Andy Lockwood, and with me is CPA business building guru Neil Gilmet. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Andy. How are you today?
Doing great. Having a great week. Sounds like you are too. When we're chatting offline, it's always nice to hear about successes and wins in the midst of a pandemic.
Absolutely.
So couldn't be any better. So the Thursday Thread is all about. It's almost like a seminar every time I interview you for this show. It's all about helping CPAs and accounting professionals get the income that they deserve and they need to live the quality of life that they desire. And I really feel like almost every word out of your mouth is worth writing down. And I always take a lot of notes here, so I hope people are enjoying this. You ready to get going today talking about what? The empty cup.
The empty cup concept.
Yeah. Let's get right into it. What is it?
The empty cup concept is a part of my business development process, selling without selling. And I've got to plant a few seeds or build a foundation before we talk about it. Excuse me. Selling without selling is about creating high profit business relationships without selling. And the reason for not selling, excuse me, the reason for not selling is because no one likes to be sold, period. Nobody. But even though no one likes to be sold, you still have to develop business. So how do you go about it? And 40 years ago, I started developing a process called selling without selling. And there are certain basics to selling without selling. The whole concept of having an empty cup is a place to start. And what does an empty cup mean? Unfortunately, the accounting profession, among others, has a predilection of, we're going to go out and pitch a client. And I hate that term because pitching a client is the absolute worst thing you can possibly do. And the reason it's the worst thing you can possibly do is because it's all about you. And as we've often said, nobody cares that you've been in practice for 364 years or that you have 290 partners who all can walk on water because they know where the rocks are. And the more you talk about you when you go to meet a prospect, the more they're saying in their mind, so what? So what? So what? So the concept of an empty cup means you have to empty your own cup. The example came down from the college professor who wanted to see a Zen master. And he went to see the Zen master, and while the Zen master invited him in and he was making tea, the college professor was going on and on and on about Zen, Zen this, Zen that, and the other thing. And the master's saying nothing. And he brings the tea over to him and he fills his cup up with tea and he keeps pouring tea and it's running over the top of the cup and the saucer. And the college professor says, Master, he said, yeah, the cup is full and you just keep pouring more tea. And the Zen master looks at him and he said, yes, my son, and so too is your mind. Until you empty it, I can't put anything into it. So the concept of the empty cup is, if you're going to go out and develop business relationships, which is what it's really all about, because it's not about selling. If you're going to develop a relationship, you have to eliminate from your own mind your goals. I want to sell this guy. I want to close this guy. These are the things I want to sell him. You have to empty all of that stuff out of your head, because if you don't empty that out of your head, if you don't have an empty cup, you will have the horrendous thing that I call commission breath. And people are offended by commission breath. They can smell your commission breath that you're trying to convince them or sell them something. So the first thing you have to learn is you need to stop trying to convince people, because some ancient Oriental philosopher, I'm not sure who it was, said a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. So trying to convince anyone of anything is a waste of time. So the first step is to empty your cup. The second step is to really understand the value that your company's difference brings to the marketplace. And if you don't have a difference to bring to the marketplace, then you're the same as everybody else in your commodity. So the first step is emptying your cup and be capable of being conversant in the value that a relationship with you would bring to a select client.
So let me jump in here. So let's focus on the empty cup a little bit, because I think it's a very easy concept to intellectually understand, but I think in practice it requires, I can say from personal experience, I'm a college advisor. I meet with prospective clients all the time. And it's very similar to the accountants that I know when they meet with prospective clients. I feel like most of the time, within 3 minutes of a conversation, I know exactly what the problem is, whether I can help them, whether I can't. I know the right questions that they should be asking, but they won't. And, I have this like constantly going on in my head because I've been doing this 20 years. And, I think at this point I've seen almost literally every scenario there is to say, there is to see. However, I also recognize that the best thing I can do is shut the hell up and just listen, because maybe I'll be surprised. Number one, I'm not always right, even though I think I am, right? Number two, it's disrespectful to start blurting out, what I feel is what they need to hear without listening to them. And number three, I'm not even sure they're the right client for me, right? That's a whole nother, I think, important concept about actively listening. It's to pick up on not only what their issues are and to make them feel understood and develop that rapport, but you want to make sure that they're going to be a good fit for you too. And you shouldn't be able to help everyone, or you shouldn't want to be able to help everyone that you meet with as a prospective client.
You're just not right for everyone. And that goes right back to identifying your ideal client and why they're your ideal client and doing it in writing. And the problem is, if you don't do that, you go out with the attitude of, I'm going to try to sell everybody I sit in front of. I'm going to try to close them and get some business out of them.
Right.
Which is the worst thing you can do, because it's going to, number one, it's going to destroy your closing ratio. And a closing ratio is something we should talk about in another workshop. But if you're going to go out and try to sell everybody that you see, you're not right for everybody. Not everybody's right for you. So you want to be able to be very clear on emptying your cup as to what you need to tell everybody, because you don't need to tell everybody anything. What you need to do is listen. I did a survey recently, in fact, 2 weeks ago, on the empty cup to some of my clients. And some of the responses were, what does the empty cup mean to you? Excuse me. You cannot learn anything if you already feel that you know. And preconceived ideas and prejudices always prevent us from seeing the truth. And you should open your mind before you open your mouth. I thought that was a good one. This story proves to me that you have to unlearn before you can learn. These are some of the responses I got from my clients that I've taught the empty cup concept to. And the biggest thing I can share with the accountants of the world is that nobody cares about you. When you go to, and in fact, I actually have a letter that we should bring out. It's called Dear Accounting Professional. And it's written from the perspective of a business owner that's trying to hire a new accountant. And it's kind of funny. But we should bring that out, because the concept is you need to empty your cup and say, look, I know who we are as a company. I'm very clear on the value that our difference brings to select clients. I know clearly who those select clients are. And I am here to see if you qualify to even be a prospect for me, which is totally different. That's emptying your cup. You're sitting there knowing very well who you are. You're knowing the value you can bring to what specific clients and why they would want to hire you. And that's the knowledge that you're full of. When you go to see a prospect, you've got to look at that prospect of saying, I don't know if they qualify to work with me or not.
Yeah, and I think the interesting psychological aspect of it to me that we've talked about a lot is that's the takeaway. So number one, it's just like, when you're trying to date someone, the girls that you chase after or guys, I know we're in a new era right now, but people that you chase after, they're going to be repulsed. It's the equivalent of commission breath. But people that you're sort of like aloof from or standoffish from are going to be more naturally either intrigued. We're sort of wired to want what we can't have type of thing. So when you go into a meeting with a prospective client, and instead of, as you say, showing up and throwing up and brag, if you're saying the opposite, which is, I'm not, we do a great job for select clients, but I'm not so sure that we're a good fit. Is it okay if I ask you some questions? That is a total role reversal. It takes confidence. It takes, to some extent, some cojones, I think, to do that. And you have, at least personally, what I have found is you have to be like that, no matter whether you have $400,000 in the bank or a negative 40 in your bank account. You've got to have that. I guess it's a lack of care. You've got to be objective.
You have to own the attitude. That has nothing to do with how much money you have or whether your electricity is about to turn off or you have more money than you know what you need. You said this one. You need to believe in your heart and in your mind that you are the prize. And that prospect is lucky that you deigned to enter their kingdom and explore whether they qualify to get the value you're capable of bringing. And that's an attitude thing. That's also part of the empty cup is when it comes to a full cup, the cup needs to be full of you. All right? Not full of what you want to do with them. You need to be going out there and saying to people, look, I only work with select clients. We work with select clients. And those select clients see a huge impact in their quality of life and income. We create phenomenal results for select clients. And I'm only here today to explore whether you're one of those clients that might be right for us, or that we might be right for each other. And as far as I know nothing about you. So with your permission, can I ask you some questions?
So that's actually a good segue. So David Goodman's here with us again. Good morning, David. And his question is before he sat down with a prospect, he's saying, I did some background checking on a potential client. How do I prevent my unsubstantiated judgments from getting in the way of the empty cup? I think that's a great question, and I think that's actually hard. But why don't you tackle that?
It's the antithesis of what the accounting profession teaches everyone to do. I'm working with a rather large firm. They have a marketing department. The first thing they want to do is learn everything they can about the client so they can inform the partner and make the partner look smart. So the partner can sit down in front of that client or prospect and show them how much they know about them so they look smart. And David, the answer to your question, David, is very simple. Make it a habit to not do anything before you go to see a client, because anything you learn about that client, you're going to have to fight to get it out of your mind. If you walk in the door and just trust yourself that you know who you are, and David, I know you know who you are and know what you can do. If you just trust that, you don't need to know anything about the client. In fact, anything you learn about that client is a detriment because it'll contribute to a full cup. And on the other side, just to finish it, Andy, on the other side of the coin, if you learn absolutely nothing about the client before you walk in, you will walk in with an empty cup about them, and it's going to force you to ask the questions to find out who they are rather than talk about you.
So I agree with all that. I have a different take on that, which is that you want to make sure the client's qualified, right, before you're investing your time with them. So I think it's okay to do a little bit of snooping and all that. But what I do with every person that I sit down with is prior to that, they fill out a quick little survey, little questionnaire. So if I were doing this as an accountant, I'd certainly want to know a little bit of stuff ahead of time to help qualify them. I'd certainly want to know some numerical stuff like what, average revenue, how long you've been in business, what do you do, that type of stuff, how many employees you have. I'd also want to know some qualitative things like what's your biggest struggle right now, what's been getting in the way, what's your goal, what's getting in the way of achieving that. Why do you think that we could potentially be a good fit for you? So I always have those exact questions, my equivalent of those questions, filled out ahead of time, so I can tell what they perceive their hot buttons to be first. That may not be, through the discovery process, I may uncover some other hot buttons. I always do, but I want to make sure they're qualified and they're invested somewhat before I speak to them.
Well, you do want to pre-qualify them to a certain extent, but you also have to look at where the source of the referral comes from. And if you've done your job properly, you've taught your referral sources what your ideal client is and who fits into that parameter, and make sure that they don't even take the time to refer anybody that doesn't fit your ideal client. So all of that is done up front. And yet, naturally, you're going to pre-qualify. If the client is outside your niche, for instance, David has a big dental niche.
Okay.
If he gets a garbage company, why waste the time to go to it? It doesn't fit in your niche. It doesn't flow with what you're already doing. So those are the kind of pre-qualifications you want. Is the client large enough for you? Are they in the right industry? Are they right industry? And who is the referring source, and what can they tell me about them? That they're great people or lousy people? That's about all you need to know. Because the less you know when you walk in to do that discovery, as long as they're qualified to be a client, the less you know when you walk in to do the discovery, the better job you're going to do on that discovery.
Yeah, look, anything you learn about someone ahead of time, whether it comes from, stalking them online or them filling out information, it's all only a sliver, I guess, of the reality that, certain people with different perspectives choose to throw out there in the world. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt, and that's, I'm sure you know that. So I like learning a little bit of information, but I don't believe most of it. I'm always skeptical. I always think there's something else going on, no matter what I learn.
Of course. Well, there are certain basic qualifiers that have to be there. Like, my specialty is working with CPAs. I will not work with large accounting firms.
Right.
Because I don't have success with large accounting firms. Because what I do is the cultural antithesis of the accounting profession.
Yeah.
Trying to change the culture of a 200, 500 partner CPA firm.
Yeah.
Like trying to turn the Queen Mary on a dime. Can't be done. It's just not my wheelhouse. But you give me a sole practitioner up to a 5 or 10 partner firm where things aren't decided by committee, I can actually create phenomenal results. But if there's a committee involved, you're wasting your time.
Right.
That's part of having an empty cup, is knowing that if that firm is large enough so it's run by a committee, I'm probably wasting my time. Because in my experience, by the way, the camel is a horse that was designed by a committee. David Goodman.
Yeah, so I'll read the question. The opportunity told the intake person he thought his fees were too high with the current firm. I love these opportunities. You taught me that could get the client to invest more with us. Yeah, that's an interesting challenge.
It is. And it's important, David, and thank you for bringing that up. Because what you've learned to do is sell value rather than services. And anytime you're selling services, people can say it's too much compared to what? Well, somebody else is selling those services cheaper. And there's always someone out there that will sell it cheaper. But when you sell value and you start off by saying, well, I'm not here to talk about prices, because in fact, what I teach is, when somebody says to you, how much is it? My response is, how much is what? How can I possibly tell you how much it is if A, I don't know what services you need to create a result that you value, and B, I don't even know if I want to work with you at this point in time. So, talking about price, that's step number 27. We're at step number 2. If you want to jump to step number 27, we're probably wasting each other's time. Thank you very much. It's been nice meeting you, and I'm out of here.
I think when the other sorry,
don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to say to someone, "This is not going to work." I can tell you right now. If you feel when you're sitting in front of a prospect that it's a battle of wits, a duel, a fencing match, you're uncomfortable, stop the meeting and get up and walk out the door, because it's uncomfortable when you first meet them. It's always going to be uncomfortable. You don't need clients like that.
So what I was going to say, yeah, that's great. What I was going to say was, and this is something you've also been very influential to me for, is the conversation is not about fees; it's about investment, which implies that return on investment. So, and that's about value. So, I've had, I've told you over the years and numerous times, including a recent one, where a prospective client told me, by the way, very well-to-do, makes a seven-figure income, wanted to hire me to help coach his daughter through the process. And he said, "Look, we're interviewing other people. You're at least twice as expensive as everyone else. In some cases, more. We want to hire you, but please just justify it to me, like why I should be hiring you." Which was, it wasn't said that aggressively, but I didn't drop down my price. I said, well, look, here's the blah 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 blah, value. He's like, okay, good, we're done. Here's the paperwork. So that's directly because of what you teach, which is shifting the conversation away from price and more toward what you're going to get out of it. What's the value?
I want to come full circle with that, Andy. It starts out with choosing to own your power as a professional, and that's part of the empty cup. Yep. The empty cup has to do with the prospect, but owning your power as a professional is acknowledging your own expertise, your own value in a marketplace. And to do that, you actually have to do some thinking. What is the value that I bring to a client relationship? Think about your best clients. Ask your best clients, what is the value that I bring to our relationship? And it takes perspicacity to ask that question, because most people are afraid to ask the client what the value is. You need to get over that fear. You need to get over it. And I have a thing that I do with my clients when I'm done with a coaching session. I say, okay, how did we do today? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate today? And I want to know. If it was a 3, I need to know about it. If it was an 8, I need to say to you, Andy, I appreciate the 8. One more question before I go. What could I have done differently that would have made it a 10? Mm-hmm. I picked up a new client. I worked with him for 2 hours last week. I said, on a scale to 1 to 10, how did I do today? He said 15. Okay, well, I know I'm on the right track.
Well, it also solidifies your relationship, and they're going to continue with you because you're actually asking them for feedback.
I'm asking them to define the value that they got from the time we spent together.
Yeah.
And if they're not getting value, you need to know it. And you need to find out, what could I do differently that would bring you more value? Ask the client. You don't have to figure this all out. What you need to do is let go of your ego and let go of the fear of hearing the truth, of coming to know and live in the truth. It's another one of the concepts. Attitude is everything. Perception is reality, and coming to know and live in the truth sets you free. Coming to know and live in the truth means putting the truth on the table, putting that skunk on the table and saying, how are we doing here? Are you getting the value you hope to get from our relationship? That ties right back into that return on investment. By using the word, instead of charging fees, people make an investment in our relationship rather than pay us a fee for services. What would you rather do?
Yeah, exactly. I want to get something out of it. So I can tell you a couple comments. One's going to be based on my personal experience. I think a lot of us feel reasonably conversant in what our value is, but when you ask a client for that feedback, you might be surprised at what they say. It might be completely different than what you perceive the right answer, quote unquote, right answer to be with your full cup. So I think it's very helpful to do that, to sort of enter the conversation in their minds. That's more of a marketing term to understand that. My personal experience that I always think about is, as a college advisor, we do a couple of things. We help coach kids through the process of optimizing their chances of getting into a school, of being really successful after college, launching them for success. We also help with the financial aid process and all that. So I remember very clearly, I was in my old office in Plainview, Long Island, and I was sitting there with a client who's a business owner, and he owned a flower shop in Queens, Floral Park. and he was coming in to hire me for his second daughter. I'd already finished with his first daughter, who was at an Ivy League school, and she was great. And he said, look, I think all the help you guys gave with the financial aid and the negotiating, because I think we negotiated an extra like $11,000 a year for his daughter, helping with the essays. I thought all that was great, and I don't think we could have done that on our own. But I think the real value, you actually use these words, was that whenever my daughter had a question, instead of asking my wife, and then she was going to ask me, and I would have no idea, and neither would my wife, would be all stressed and anxious about the real value was having you there to answer all those questions and alleviate that stress. And I remember I wasn't like stunned, because I know I thought that was more of like a side effect, an unintended consequence. And then that got me thinking. I was like, well, that's the real business that I'm in. That's the real value. I think that's the intended consequence. And all the other like stuff that we do, that's just a means to get to that value, to that end. I was surprised.
When we first started working together, you were doing very well on your own without me. But one of the things that I think was important is that we changed the value that you bring to the party that differentiates you from other college planners. And if the concept that you're not sitting there to help me plan for the next 4 years of my child's life. Our difference as college planners are we're helping your child plan for the next 40 years of their life. Yep. And that's what makes us different from our competition.
Yep.
If I had met you way back when, you would advise me not to take that underwater basket weaving course because I could never make any money with the knowledge that I had. But It was fun.
Yep.
David,
echoing what I just said. Yep.
I learned from the best kept secret in the CPA profession. Thank you very much, David. We had a lot of fun together. We worked together a long time. We did a lot together. And I'm glad to see that you're back listening and still coming back after all these years. It's good to have you aboard.
Yeah. By the way, we're doing this so Neil's not a secret. I mean, I don't think he is, but please share this. Anyone who's watching this, please share this and comment. If you have any questions, you're watching this on replay, pop them in the comment section. Neil will be getting to those to answer those questions. So please share this with anyone you think would benefit from this information. All right, we're almost out of time here. Neil, you have any closing bits of wit and wisdom that you want to impart?
Consciously learn to empty your cup. Learn the value that you bring to the marketplace you intend to penetrate, and learn to be conversant in that value and conversant in how it's different. And then empty your cup of everything you think you want to tell people and start to listen. God gave you 2 ears, 1 mouth. That means you need to listen twice as much as you talk.
Yeah, if you're sitting out the prospective client and you're doing most of the talking, shut up, stop yourself. And I even do this still, even though I've been trained to not do this. I'll say, listen, I'm doing most of the talking here. This meeting is more about you than me. It's not really about me at all. So can I ask you a few more questions?
When you meet with a prospect in the accounting world, if you meet with the average prospect and that meeting runs an hour to an hour and a half, let's just say it runs an hour. The prospect should be speaking 40 minutes out of that hour. You should be listening for 40 minutes out of that hour. The rest of it is yours, but you need to listen for the first 40 minutes, and you need to get the prospect talking about not their business, but the relevance of their business to how well it's impacting their quality of life and income, because that's where you can make the difference.
Good. And I've seen you in action. You've taught me how to do this. It starts with the empty cup and then asking the right open-ended questions, which is probably another topic for another day.
Predetermined, absolutely.
Good. All right. Well, thanks, Neil. This was terrific, as always.
Thanks.
I took a bunch of notes. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Please like and share this so we can help spread the word about Neil's unique approach to helping CPAs grow their businesses. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us today.
Bye.